They told us Costco was the safe haven, the place where quality never cuts corners and trusted brands line the shelves. But what happens when even that fortress starts to crack? When the labels you trust become loaded dice and the foods you've stocked for months turn into ticking time bombs inside your kitchen? This year alone, the FDA and USDA have documented tens of thousands of pounds of food yanked from Costco aisles, from luxury chocolates laced with heavy metals to beef sticks hiding shards of steel. And in June alone, a single recall swept up an 18-pack of bottled water tainted with bacteria known to invade lungs and bloodstreams. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. Today, we're breaking down Costco's chilling order. Do not use these 7 products. And before you panic about what's hiding in your pantry, stay with us. Because at the end of each section, we'll reveal the safe alternatives you can trust. Number 1, dairy. They told us it was fresh Fiesta made easy. A ready-made party in a tray. Costco's deli kits, stacked high in glistening plastic, promise nothing but joy. Taco spreads overflowing with cheese, soft chicken wraps tucked in rows, and creamy dips crowned with queso fresco that sparkled like a neon sign flashing good times ahead. But that promise curdled into horror almost overnight. In early 2024, those very same trays were yanked off shelves across America when investigators traced their dairy ingredients back to a long-running listeria outbreak tied to Rizo Lopez. 2 Americans are dead. 1 unborn child never even had a chance to breathe. And over 20 more spent their supposed celebration weekend in hospital beds rather than backyard chairs. Listeria isn't a quirky upset stomach you walk off. It's a silent invader that creeps into your bloodstream and brain, hijacking your body like a thief in the night, and turning a family birthday into a funeral gathering before anyone even knows what hit them. The deeper the FDA dug, the uglier the truth got. Reports revealed how Rizo Lopez's facilities had quietly collected positive listeria swabs from drains and machinery for years, treating them like baseball cards rather than red flags. Their so-called sanitation efforts were about as useful as mopping a flood with a napkin. Instead of eliminating the bacteria, they allowed it to loiter, waiting patiently to hitch a ride on every creamy shipment rolling into Costco's refrigerated aisles. And the most disturbing part? These cheeses weren't sold in obvious blocks or wheels. They were tucked deep inside those festive deli kits, hidden behind salsa and lettuce, a wolf wearing Fiesta colors. By the time recall alerts hit the news, thousands of families had already parked the danger next to their iced tea and picnic coolers. For older shoppers with fading eyesight and arthritis-stiff fingers trying to decipher faint lot. Codes buried in cluttered labels was like trying to read smoke. Frustrating, exhausting, and often too late. This is the cruelest magic trick of the modern food industry, dressing danger in bright colors so it looks like comfort. While corporations issue bland, voluntary recall press releases and pat themselves on the back, it's working-class seniors, juggling fixed incomes, blood pressure pills, and grocery flyers like circus acts, who absorb the blow. They don't have lawyers to decode barcode hieroglyphics. They have trust. And that trust is shattered the moment a smiling taco tray meant for joy turns into a silent assassin hiding in plain sight. Behind this recall lies a deeper, systemic rot, one that stretches beyond any single cheese batch. It's about how weak oversight, sloppy manufacturing practices, and corporate cost-cutting quietly weaponize the very foods we rely on. It's about a system that lets deadly pathogens fester in machinery for years, as long as the profits keep rolling in. It's about products disguised as convenience while smuggling risk straight into the homes of people who can least afford another health crisis. And perhaps the cruelest twist of all, those risks are marketed directly to the very people most vulnerable to them. Older Americans, many living paycheck to paycheck or surviving on Social Security, are targeted with value packs and easy prep meals that promise affordability and safety, but too often deliver betrayal. The smiling packaging doesn't mention that the cheese inside might carry bacteria that can kill you. The cheerful slogans don't admit that one company allowed contamination to linger like a squatter's camp inside its facility. And the press releases never confess that by the time the truth comes out, the damage is already done. If you still want cheese without gambling with your life, there are safer paths through this minefield. Look for brands like Cabot Creamery, Sharp Cheddar, Belgioioso Parmesan, or Crystal Farms Mozzarella, all of which use pasteurization and proper aging processes that dramatically reduce listeria risks instead of sweeping them under the rug. You might also turn to Tillamook Medium Cheddar or Roth Grand Cru, brands that maintain strict microbial monitoring and invest in cleaner, safer production lines. Because after October of 2025, Rizzo Lopez Dairy isn't authentic flavor anymore. It's a silent threat wearing a party hat. Some foods season a meal, these cheeses season tragedy. And in a world where even the cheese tray is playing Russian roulette with your health, maybe the real question isn't what's for dinner, but who's watching the kitchen. Number 2, sandwiches and salads. They were sold to us as quick comfort, a grab-and-go promise to make life easier. But by May, they looked more like crime scene tape on a plate. 86 ready-to-eat sandwiches, wraps, and salads from Fresh and Ready Foods, in its shadow brands, City Point Market and Fresh Take Crave Away, were suddenly pulled from Costco shelves after inspectors discovered listeria nesting inside the machines themselves. Not on a stray cutting board, not lurking in a forgotten fridge corner. Inside the slicers, as if the steel had sprouted teeth and turned predator. 10 people landed in hospitals. One never made it home. And yet these same sandwiches had been obediently lined up from Arizona to Washington, labeled easy meals for busy retirees just trying to stretch a fixed income. Officials called it a precautionary recall. But to older Americans counting every dollar, precaution is corporate code for you're on your own. Because one wrong turkey wrap can become a $6,000 hospital bill faster than a credit card swipe, and that shiny press release with its polished font reads less like reassurance and more like a death notice dressed up as lunch. And the hidden ambush goes far beyond bacteria. These sandwich factories operate like casinos where the house always wins, cranking out thousands of units per shift while treating proper cleaning time as if it were lost profit. Taking apart slicers to scrub every hidden bolt? That's considered heresy when quotas are rising faster than slot machine jackpots. So the microbes get squatters' rights. Meanwhile, overworked staff on 12-hour shifts with throbbing wrists and barely half a training session just pray they don't miss a critical step. One careless slip upstream becomes a biological booby trap downstream. For retirees grabbing what looks like a harmless turkey club, it's like being handed a lunchbox that could explode. The company cuts corners, the workers get crushed, and the customers pay with blood pressure spikes and plastic hospital wristbands. Then there's the quiet killer nobody talks about, allergen roulette. Regulators caught wraps leaving the facility missing warnings for milk, soy, and nuts, as if allergens were just optional seasoning. Picture a grandmother buying a wrap for her grandson, unaware that the sauce inside was swapped mid-week for a dairy-laced version. One innocent bite, and she's dialing 911 with shaking hands. This isn't sabotage, it's systemic chaos. Ingredients get swapped, labels lag behind recipes, and oversight gets drowned out by the relentless hum of production quotas. The box might scream wholesome, but inside it ticks like a time bomb, and the negligence snowballs by the time these products hit Costco's floor. Refrigerated meals are supposed to stay below 40 degrees, yet customers have reported sweating sandwiches in fogged-up cases, packages stacked above cooling lines like forgotten luggage. For bacteria, a 10-degree rise isn't a hiccup, it's a green flag to multiply. Older shoppers, trying to save half for tomorrow, unknowingly set the table for a midnight pathogen buffet. Even the lot, codes, the one tool that could tell someone if their lunch is dangerous, are printed so faint they might as well be written in disappearing ink. For aging eyes, they're nearly invisible. What good is a recall if the people most at risk can't even see the warning? And perhaps the final insult is the label itself, a masterpiece of corporate irony. Fresh, chef-inspired, healthy. Fresh means nothing if the germs are sautéing inside, and healthy becomes a sick joke if it ends with an ICU wristband. These sandwiches are corporate theater, luring retirees with low prices and comforting slogans, while quietly gambling with the health of the very people least likely to survive a serious infection. And when they're exposed, they hide behind the same tired phrase, out of an abundance of caution. But that doesn't erase trauma. It doesn't cancel medical debt. It's a PR Band-Aid slapped over a wound that should never have been inflicted in the first place. After October of 2025, skip the glossy displays of fresh and ready foods, City Point Market, and Fresh Take Crave away. There are safer bets: Boar's Head, Applegate, Just Bear, and Oscar Mayer's sealed packs, still available at Costco, but without the roulette wheel. Or make your own: canned salmon with vinegar slaw, Dole or Taylor Farms greens rinsed at home, and Hillshire Farm deli meats you can actually see. It might not come with a chef-inspired sticker, but it won't come with a side of regret, because convenience should never mean flipping a coin with your life, especially when you've already earned the right to eat in peace. Number 3, water. It stands on Costco's floor like bottled moonlight. Topo Chico mineral water, gleaming in tall glass bottles and whispering a comforting lie to anyone desperate to believe that at least water won't betray them. But that illusion shattered this June like a fragile bottle dropped on concrete. An 18-pack distributed across the Southwest was yanked from shelves after tests uncovered Pseudomonas aeruginosa, a bacteria notorious for slipping into lungs, bloodstreams, and even healing wounds. For anyone with fragile immunity, a surgical scar still knitting shut, an immune system worn thin by age or chronic illness, one crisp sip could spiral into a screaming ambulance ride. What was sold as a refreshing pick-me-up turned into a high-stakes spin of the roulette wheel for older shoppers just trying to stay hydrated. And calling the recall voluntary was a cruel joke, because when the price of a mistake is an ICU wristband, nothing about it feels optional. But the real betrayal didn't erupt overnight. It's been festering quietly for years. Consumer Reports flagged Topo Chico for having the highest PFAS levels among all sparkling waters tested. And even after Coca-Cola bragged about reducing them, the numbers still towered above what scientists warn is safe. PFAS, those so-called forever chemicals once used in firefighting foam and non-stick pans, don't rinse out. They dig in and squat in your bloodstream for decades, quietly linked to cancers, hormonal chaos, immune system collapse, and reproductive damage. It's the cruelest form of poison, slow, invisible, and dressed up in bubbles. And for older Americans who already traded salty snacks for salads and soda for seltzer, learning that their healthy soda alternative might be dosing them with chemicals linked to cancer feels like discovering your fire extinguisher sprays gasoline. Yet behind that sparkling bottle is a truth even uglier than chemical contamination, one that no glossy label will ever admit. Topo Chico draws its water from Monterrey, Mexico, where locals have accused Coca-Cola of draining aquifers dry during brutal droughts. While Americans sip wellness from crystal bottles, nearby families ration water by the bucket, watching their wells collapse like punctured lungs. The marketing calls it heritage. The locals call it theft. And for anyone raised on the belief that clean water is a right, not a luxury, the irony burns more bitterly than any twist of lemon. That's the dark heart of this luxury bubble business. They bottle purity like perfume, while quietly profiting from pollution, over-extraction, and loopholes wide enough to drive a delivery truck through. And older Americans living on fixed incomes are the perfect targets. Seduced by glass bottles and prestige branding, convinced they're buying safety, when what they're really buying is uncertainty in liquid form. The bottle glows like starlight, but the fine print reads like a dare. If you don't want your hydration to double as a health hazard, it's time to change what's in your cart after October of 2025. Safer picks exist. Poland Spring Natural, Spring Water, Mountain Valley Spring Water in glass, or Perrier Sparkling. Brands tested under tighter oversight, without PFAS lingering in the background, or thirsty villages left gasping downstream. Because water should quench your thirst, not your future. And the day we have to second-guess even a glass of water is the day the system has failed us entirely. Number 4, chocolates. They didn't just sit quietly on Costco's shelves. They strutted in like tiny gold-plated diplomats, each one shimmering with false promises of glamour to shoppers exhausted from clipping coupons and watching grocery prices climb higher than their blood pressure. These glossy Dubai-style chocolates from Rolling Pin were marketed as the luxury bite of the year, the kind of treat that makes you feel like royalty, even if your checking account says otherwise. But behind that sparkle lurked a ticking time bomb wrapped in foil. In September of 2025, Costco quietly yanked them off shelves after discovering a glaring allergen blunder. The label listed gluten instead of wheat. To a corporation, that might seem like a harmless typo, but to someone with a wheat allergy or celiac disease, that typo is a loaded gun. One careless bite and they're sprinting toward the emergency room with a bill big enough to make a social security check look like spare change. And calling the recall voluntary felt like a slap in the face, as if retirees stocking up on treats for winter somehow volunteered to gamble with anaphylaxis between sips of chamomile tea. Yet the threat didn't stop with the label. It just changed costumes. Independent lab tests by Consumer Reports have flagged multiple chocolate brands, even the upscale ones, for contamination with lead and cadmium, two heavy metals that don't scream on contact but instead settle into your bones, kidneys, and brain like squatters who refuse to leave. They sit there quietly, year after year, stealing your health in slow motion. And by the time symptoms appear, the damage has unpacked its bags and made itself at home. For older Americans already juggling half a pharmacy's worth of pills, that harmless little square of chocolate becomes a stealth attack. A sweet-talking pickpocket robbing them of vitality one bite at a time. It's like slapping fresh paint over a termite-infested wall and calling it a luxury home. And the poison doesn't stop at chemistry. It festers in the very foundation of the chocolate supply chain. Watchdog groups have repeatedly exposed how much of the world's cocoa still comes from West African farms built on child labor, forced labor, and starvation wages. That means every bite of luxury might carry the fingerprints of exhausted children half a world away. For Americans who still believe that a fair day's work deserves a fair day's pay, the thought that their holiday chocolate might be built on stolen childhoods is like unwrapping a smile and finding a scream inside. It's not indulgence, it's complicity disguised as dessert. Even the marketing was a con in silk gloves. Rolling Pins sold scarcity like snake oil, slapping limited edition on the box and leaning hard into prestige. Exactly the emotional bait that hooks older shoppers who remember when chocolate was a rare treat, but now must count every penny. The wrapper screamed joy. The fine print whispered negligence. It's the oldest trick in capitalism's playbook. Make danger look exclusive and watch people line up to buy it. And seniors on fixed incomes, people who just want to enjoy a small luxury without risking their health, are the ones who pay the highest price. That's why, after October of 2025, these so-called luxury chocolates shouldn't even be called treats. They're warning labels with sprinkles. If you still crave pistachio-filled chocolate without gambling with your health, safer options exist. Lindt Excellence Pistachio, Tony's Chocolonely Pistachio Bars, and Ghirardelli. Intense Dark Pistachio run real audits, use accurate labeling, and don't cut corners on safety. You could also turn to Alter Eco Organic Dark Chocolate or Endangered Species Pistachio Plus Sea Salt, brands that commit to ethical sourcing and transparent practices. They might not flood your social media feed with glamour shots, but they offer something infinitely more precious than prestige: peace of mind. Because dessert should spoil your sweet tooth, not your bloodstream, your conscience, or your belief that treating yourself shouldn't feel like playing Russian roulette with your health. Number 5, smoked salmon. It struck like an ice bath this spring. Costco's gleaming Kirkland Signature smoked salmon, that so-called budget luxury meant to crown Sunday bagels, was suddenly swept into a Class 1 recall, the FDA's loudest siren reserved for the moments when "this could kill you" isn't hyperbole, but fact. Tests revealed listeria lurking inside vacuum-sealed twin packs shipped across southeastern Florida, and for older shoppers already stretching every coupon just to make a shrinking Social Security check last, that headline landed like a sucker punch to the ribs. This wasn't supposed to be a gamble. It was supposed to be a treat. But now that silky slice looked more like a landmine, shrink-wrapped in plastic. And the detail that chills the bone? No hospitalizations had been reported yet. But officials warn that danger doesn't expire when the press release does. Once cold smoked salmon is tucked into your freezer, it waits, patient and unseen, like a grinning burglar who already has your house key. Because cold smoking doesn't cook the fish, it merely perfumes it. And that velvety texture so many older shoppers love? It's essentially a five-star hotel for bacteria. Listeria thrives in damp, chilly environments, and seniors are up to 20 times more likely to die from listeriosis than younger adults. That's not just a statistic. It's monitors beeping in ICUs, hospital bills stacked like poker chips, and doctors whispering the word sepsis. What makes it worse is how late the alarm always sounds. Recalls like this erupt after distribution, when most of the product has already been eaten. It's like pulling the fire alarm after half the house is already ash. By the time the FDA issues its polite, out of an abundance of caution statements, older shoppers have already rolled their dice and their health on a bagel topping. And no, this wasn't a one-off fluke. Behind Kirkland Salmon stands Acme Smoked Fish Corporation, whose FDA inspection record reads less like a corporate logbook and more like a horror script. Drains coated with biofilm, condensation dripping from ceilings onto prep tables, slicers etched with crevices where bacteria throw house parties. In one inspection, managers even brushed off positive listeria swabs as merely environmental, without checking if they had reached food contact surfaces. That's not caution, that's negligence wearing a corporate tie. If you're going to sell something as premium, you owe seniors stainless steel discipline, not a germ playground hiding behind a luxury label. But the rot goes deeper than hygiene. Watchdog investigations have exposed how some smoked salmon brands slap on words like Norwegian and wild caught, while the fish actually comes from industrial farming pens. Polluted cesspools swirling with sea lice, antibiotics and waste that would make a pelican gag. For seniors who grew up trusting that made in America or wild caught meant something, this bait and switch hits like deja vu wrapped in cellophane. It's the same corporate magic trick they've seen before. Sell the fantasy up front, bury the filth in fine print, and no glossy label tells you about the blood price paid by the workers behind those chilled factory doors. Immigrant laborers toil through 12-hour shifts in damp, frigid air, slicing fish with numb hands under impossible quotas. Respiratory illness, repetitive strain injuries, and exhaustion haunt the production floor. For many older Americans who once worked the factory lines themselves, this is like staring into a cracked mirror. Decades pass, but corporations are still grinding workers to dust upstream just to sell affordable luxury downstream. Every silky slice of salmon carries more than sodium. It carries someone's stolen breath. And about that sodium, each dainty portion sneaks in over 600 milligrams, nearly a quarter of a senior's daily limit. While the label waves omega-3s like a shiny distraction, it's the oldest marketing con in the book. Spotlight the halo in bold print, bury the hazard in fine text. Instead of gambling on Kirkland salmon, consider safer pantry standbys like Star-Kissed chunk, light tuna in water, with lower mercury than albacore. Wild Planet sardines in extra virgin olive oil, lab tested for contaminants. Or chicken of the sea pink salmon pouches, fully cooked and shelf stable. They may not drape across a bagel like a fancy ribbon, but they also won't send your breakfast straight to the ICU. Until Costco and Acme stop hiding their safety records like state secrets, this so-called luxury belongs behind the glass and far from your plate. Number 6, beef sticks. It hit Costco's aisles in March like a chill. Nearly 30,000 pounds of Chomp's beef and turkey sticks abruptly recalled, not for bacteria, but for something far more terrifying. Metal fragments hidden inside clean label snacks. This wasn't rumor. The USDA printed lot codes and plant numbers in black and white. For older shoppers stretching Social Security checks, it felt like discovering loaded weapons in the pantry. And while the company insisted no one was hurt, that's little comfort to anyone who might only learn of the recall after biting into steel and turning a $2 snack into a $4,000 ER bill. The chaos goes deeper than one bad batch. Meat plants roar through thousands of sticks per shift, often switching beef and turkey on the same line with little time for cleaning. Speed outruns safety, And every wave of new hires brings mistakes. Allergens missed, shards overlooked. Marketing screams paleo and keto, but each stick hides 300 milligrams of sodium. Eat 2, and you've burned through nearly a third of your daily limit, a quiet threat to anyone on blood pressure meds. Even sourcing claims wobble. Much of that grass-fed beef is imported from countries with weak oversight, and former workers describe freezing rooms, 12-hour shifts, and speed prioritized over safety. One exhausted moment near a metal detector, and a defect ends up in someone's Costco bag. Skip the roulette sticks? Choose Bumblebee or Wild Planet sardines, Swanson or Hormel chicken tins, or plant-based options like David Seeds pumpkin seeds and wonderful pistachios. They may not shout buzzwords, but they deliver safe, honest protein, without the gamble Chomps now represents. Number 7. Colby Jack cheese. It cut through Costco's Northwest calm like a hidden blade. June of 2024, when Tillamook's Colby Jack and Monterey Jack slices were suddenly recalled after inspectors found plastic fragments inside. Item 651195, stamped with a best buy of October 22, was hit with a Class 2 recall FDA code for possibly harmful. But for an older shopper, that sterile phrase means little when a sandwich hides a shard sharp enough to crack dentures or lodge in the throat like a landmine. Plastic looks harmless on paper, but in a mouth, it's an ambush. And for seniors already drowning in medical bills, precautionary reads more like sarcasm. One wrong bite can turn lunch into an ambulance ride. The irony is thicker than the cheese itself. Tillamook, once painted as the wholesome farmer cooperative, now looks no different from the faceless giants it long opposed. The contamination likely came where plastic meets metal, slicing blades, conveyor belts, crumbling guards. But the fracture runs deeper. It exposes how dependent the food system is on plastic at every stage, from wrapping to machinery, which means this won't be the last shard sneaking onto someone's plate. Even loyal Oregonians mocked it online as extra sharp plastic, but beneath the sarcasm lay a collapse of trust in a brand that once felt like family. And for older Americans, trust is currency. Tillamook was one of the last comforting names in a corporate grocery world. Seeing it on a recall bulletin felt like watching a childhood farmhouse bulldozed. No warning, just rubble. Push machinery past its lifespan, and the machine ends up in the food. What's sold as heritage starts to look like industrial debris. Safer swaps are waiting. Emilia, Gruyere, Jarlsberg Light, or Sargento Ultra-Thin Provolone. They may not wear Tillamook's homespun charm, but they won't make you flinch at every bite. The next recall could be sitting in your pantry. Subscribe now, before the next warning lands on your dinner plate.
Thanks a lot for sticking with us to the very end. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss any daily uploads. And now, go ahead and explore some of our top recommended videos popping up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.